Okay.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. You guys are right on time. You're first up.
All right. So I'm Hillary Solomon with the Poultney Mettowee Natural Resources Conservation District, office in Poultney. And this is Joe Bartlett, who's with Fitzgerald Environmental, who's a consultant that we've hired to look at a project here in Fairhaven. So I don't know if I've spoken to everybody about this, or if this will be new to a couple of folks. But the Fairhaven project is really nice because the storm drain system already collects all the stormwater and it brings it all to one point, and so it's really easy to treat that water then, since it's already been collected through these neighborhoods. So we're looking at installing a stormwater treatment practice in the park that will hopefully not even know it's there. It'll be underground. So we take the water that's collected in the storm drain system, and it's quite a bit in terms of the acres of land and the gallons of water that's collected, and then treating it under the park in one of the areas that doesn't have any trees, just across the road. And we have some plans we can hand out. But the idea is that it would be a really kind of a convenient, nice, sort of easy way actually to treat stormwater that's already been collected, like I said. So I work with the Conservation District. There's some funds available to pay for the design of the project, which is the stage we're at right now. We wanted to bring it to the town before it got too far down through the design, because there had been a lot of questions when I first introduced this project. And I apologize, that was about a year ago, I think, and then it's taken a while with all the flooding and all the work, other work that the consulting companies had and that we've had through this clean water service provider that we're working on. It's been a little while, but we're back. The design is kind of up to its next iteration. We just wanted to make sure the town felt comfortable with us progressing, so we're going to go over the project, the design, answer questions, and sort of just take a measure on how folks are feeling about this potential project. And I will, at this point, turn it over to Joe, who will sort of lead the technical part of the presentation.
I brought some handouts. So I'm Joe Bartlett. I'm part of the design team. We're based out of Colchester. We do a lot of work down in this area. Let me pass out. I did almost enough for everyone. So first sheet. This is just we've been working. Ferguson Waterworks, who has an office, I believe. Yeah, pass those around. I believe they have an office in Rutland, but they've got offices all over the place. So they, one of the products they sell is the one that they're speccing for this project. Pass those around too. But then I only printed out 2 sets of these. These are the details from Ferguson. This is a lot of like really kind of deep engineering stuff that it's like specifications on. But just to give an idea of like kind of where we're at right now. And so basically, is this a good spot? Where should I be? What do I do with my hands? And so, basically, as Hillary said, the storm line, it's pretty much the storm drain system that comes down Carnarvon, drains a large area of impervious surfaces, and so all the different pavement, rooftops, and everything. That's what generates the most storm water. And the green is located on just a beautiful bed of sand. It's just really sandy soil. We did test pits, I believe it was December of 2022. We worked with the DPW and they dug 2 really big test pits, and it's like perfect conditions. So for these systems to work, pretty much the things you need is you need the stormwater, which we have, and then you also then need good sand, because that soaks up the water really well, and then you also need deep depth to either bedrock or the water table, and that's also there. We dug down about 12 feet, then augered another 6 feet, and never hit groundwater, and I know there's no bedrock down there. So it really checks all the boxes for being a perfect location. It's also on municipal property, and like it's an open green space. So then it just sort of comes down to like, is it compatible with the use of the space and with the vision for the area? So that's sort of where we're at now. So I guess the handouts I passed around, so the first one, just the little 8.5 by 11, those are pictures of a fairly similarly sized system in Massachusetts that was built recently. And so it's effectively just a really big hole in the ground, a big rectangular hole in the ground. And then they put down a bed of gravel, probably 6 inches to a foot thick. And then on top of that, they put fabric, and then they just lay down these rows and rows of R tanks, which are basically just fancy milk crates. And they're roughly the size of 2 milk crates end to end. And then you lay out your whole rectangle of those, and you stack them as high as you need. And so because you have such a good depth to groundwater and you have really good sand, this one can be, we have it spec'd for, I believe, 5 rows of R tanks. So it's almost 7 feet tall of these milk crates. And so, and then you fill up the sides with stone, then you fold the fabric over the top, which is in the pictures, and then you backfill with soil on top of it. And so long as you have at least 2 feet of soil on top of them, then they end up being HS20 rated, which is the rating that you need to drive any type of like passenger vehicle over them. And so then the way the system works is all the stormwater comes down, and we have to get it across the road. That's the one kind of tricky part, is it has to get across the road. And then there will be a large manhole structure, which is shown on our plans. And that location, we're still flexible on that, but we need to have a large manhole structure there, and that's going to have what's called a swirl separator in it, and it's a fancy kind of, it creates sort of almost a little like tornado with the water when it comes in. So any floatables like trash, they get settled out on the top and then pulled off on a screen, and then any heavier things like gravel, they go down to the bottom, and then clean water comes out through the middle. And so it's a similar principle to a septic tank, but it uses like spinning water to sort out the different things. And so then the clean water comes out of that and goes into the R tank system. And the R tank system, it can have an overflow, and we could actually overflow it. There's a catch basin in the very northwest corner, which we could tie into to then bring the water back across to in front of the fire station. Or it can just be this big chamber underground. And it would all be plumbed so that if it is full, no water would continue along the new path. It would just keep draining the way that it does now, which is over to the east, and it would just stay in the storm line the same. So sort of the way it works, like under a worst case scenario, everything just functions the way that it does now. And then under the design scenario, until you have a storm, probably bigger than about 1.5 inches of rain in 24 hours, all of the water would go into the R tank system and would soak into the ground. So, that storm line would no longer have water going, further to the east unless you're in a bigger storm. And so, these are really good for water quality. So it's called, the term is infiltration if you soak the storm water into the ground. And infiltration is widely accepted as the best way to treat water, to remove nutrients, to remove pollutants. And those would all otherwise end up in the river where the system currently discharges to. So there is, a sizable water quality benefit, and as Hillary said, there's a lot of money right now available to support these projects. And so, it's a really good time to get these projects. And this one, she can probably speak to it better than I can, but it's got to be one of the better projects that's on the upcoming list for statewide in terms of like checking all the boxes and being very cost effective for water quality improvements. So, obviously you don't know until you get to that level, but it seems very likely to meet the requirements to get funding for implementation. So the pictures, so back to the one, the 8.5 by 11 sheet, so that kind of shows the before and after. And so basically, during construction, there will be a very large hole in the ground. It will occupy, you can see on the plan set kind of, if you flip this one over, it shows the area that we're talking about. So here's the fire station, we're right in here. And so, it's this whole area right here. So it is a big area. And that would be dug down like 10 feet deep. And a lot of that material would need to be trucked away. So there's going to be, keep going.
It's on the back side.
There you go. So there will be a lot of nice clean sand that needs to go somewhere because that all gets trucked away and gets replaced with the milk crates.
Where that big hole goes in,
Yep.
just coming out of construction, and that took quite a bit of time, because we do a lot of things. We have a lot of things happening in that park. What's the forecasted construction time? Like, how long will you be big hole construction?
I mean, that all depends on what contractor gets hired to do it. I mean, we're installing a gravel wetland right now in Orleans that's the same footprint, it's only half the depth. They dug the hole in a day and a half. So, I mean, it just depends. If you have a contractor come in with 3 good-sized machines and they have 8 trucks running sand, it could be dug quickly. I can't give you, I don't know, it's all very straightforward to do this installation.
The past projects said, give us a ballpark, 2 weeks, 2 months?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would lean more towards, it was certainly weeks, not months, but I can follow up with that and get more information. But it largely comes down to who the contractor is and what their capacity is to do big projects.
Right, so that's like a prime area of the park. That's where a lot of stuff is held in that area.
Well,
Is that where the farmer's market
That's
is?
where the farmer's market, which,
Was
Lumberjack show.
Well, Lumberjack's inside the,
this is
I
all,
thought-
this is
I thought
all
part of it-
outside the park
I
here.
thought part
Does
of
that
the
affect
lumberjack show was
the
outside.
new lights at all? Any of the underground wires we just
there's
ran?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, so we will have to come through those wires, but, that's a pretty easy utility to work around. It would just be one crossing of the wires. There's also likely a water main that we have to go through, or, around too, but we're still figuring that part out.
what's the size of the pipe from Carnarvon Street across?
It should be on the plans, but I believe it's a 12-inch. It's not, it doesn't need to be huge. It should be on the plans though.
Should be something.
Yeah, he was saying you can drive on it.
So their one concern, I know that the town does stockpile snow there in the winter, and so I would like to talk with, their crew about kind of what would be reasonable. Because a front loader with a full bucket of wet snow is really heavy on the front axle. So like, it would be, that's a little scary in terms of a load rating, but like normal cars is not a problem at all. And so we have everything buffered, I think 15 feet off of the curb. So there'd be 15 feet of undisturbed soil, and then we'd be getting into the chambers.
So they were wondering how much space you need for snow storage in that area.
So, well, when you look at this picture here, am I right in assuming, because at one time when we were talking before, we said possibly parking lot, but then we're saying, look, like this picture here says, when you get done, you can have grass just like we have now, and all I hear you saying is, be careful driving real heavy stuff over that. And I'm trying to think of the heavy stuff that we drive over it.
Well, for a perfect example, this past summer, they had the fire trucks in there, they had
The touch.
tandem trucks in there, the loaders,
Yeah, touch
for
truck.
touch a truck, all that.
Yeah, and that's where the town set up a lot of
That's
their
all
equipment.
heavy equipment, and I don't think that's gonna work very well.
You know what they were doing? Like why were the vehicles there? What were
Community
they doing?
events.
We had a Friday night community event where
It
it
was a
was touch a truck,
touch a
and
truck.
we had stuff all around the
Yeah.
park. It would require, it sounds like, if, we could still do touch a truck, but not on that grass. It would have to be in the new parking area, in other places around the park, not in that grassy area.
It's a 24-inch pipe, I think, HDPE, is that what we're calling it?
Okay, yeah, so I believe that we don't need that much capacity, it's more because it's gonna be a really flat pipe, so I think that's why they did a 24 and not smaller, because the actual flow rate is not very high coming across the road, but I believe that's why it's expected.
Now,
What's the benefit to this system versus what we're doing now? What's the
Right now, there's no treatment on that storm line at all.
rip of that?
So the water just goes to the Poultney River with all of the pollutants in it. So it's all an environmental project, right? So if
Your question, maybe, and don't let me jump to, the question was, well, I think back about a year and a half when we talked about this, what if we didn't do this?
Yeah.
Understand the state could still, when stormwater runoff is a huge thing. Right now, the state will pay for mitigation for, I might be oversimplifying it, but for stormwater runoff. They could come in here a few years from now and say, you will do, just like we're up at the high school, you will do stormwater runoff. And we'll pay for that as well. Just so you're thinking in terms of, why would you, if you're thinking back, why would you do it? Other question though I have is, we just did some work at the other end and for to mitigate some stormwater runoff with that, down at that end. How does this tie in, or?
So was that project required because you were reconfiguring the impervious and you were adding impervious, so you
Yeah.
needed a permit? Is that why?
No, actually, it was just part of the project. It
Okay.
was
Was
just
to
added
do
to
a
it.
rain garden to help with the
So-
waste runoff?
Yeah, like absorbing from the parking area.
Yeah. So, yeah, and so that setup was to treat the runoff, and, but so also, you know, even as a municipality, if you wanted to add impervious surfaces, if you wanted to add parking lot somewhere in a spot that was currently grass, you could potentially trigger it, having to do a permit, just like a residential property would have to do, and then you would have to do a stormwater practice. So like a lot of towns are encountering that when they build a new DPW garage or build a new police station or something like that. If there's more than a half acre of new impervious associated with that project, you have to do a stormwater permit. And this type of practice, this is a bigger scale, but this is exactly the kind of thing that makes sense given your sand here.
No, and excuse me if I just have just a couple more.
Absolutely.
We love our trees in the park.
Yes.
If I remember correctly, there was some concern a year and a half ago when we were talking about this of, hey, if we do this water there, do we put our beautiful trees in the park at risk?
Yep. So I did discuss that with the design engineers. So, you know, basically, kind of the rule is that so long as you are not digging within the canopy of the tree, so like that circle, then you're not going to disturb any important roots. Like maybe some little tiny fine roots that chase out that far. But from the water standpoint, you can set these systems up so that the water can go out of the sides and the bottom, or you can set them up so that it only goes out of the bottom. So for this system, you definitely would want, and so basically, instead of having geotextile fabric, kind of almost like garden fabric, you would have like a vinyl liner on the sides. So for this project, you would definitely want to do that on the side parallel to the road, because you don't want to send a bunch of water laterally under, you know, a really important road. You also could easily do that along the side towards the trees. It's probably not necessary, but if that's a concern, it doesn't change the cost or the function of the system at all. But you could set it up so that that water only goes down, and so that water would not be entering the sand until it's 10, 12 feet below grade, which should be well outside of any, you know, like you're not gonna be flooding the roots of a tree if you're 12 feet down. So that's an easy concern to incorporate into the design.
They're relatively cleaner water too, correct?
Yeah,
Where does it drain if there's an overflow? Where does it drain out?
it would just continue in the same system as it does now.
So I don't see it on here, and I'm just wondering how that works.
So the system currently, it comes down Carnarvon and then it heads east.
So once it's in the new system, it would just drain
It just
out.
goes into the ground. It just.
But
percolates down.
you're talking 1.5 to 2 inches of water. That's not unusual nowadays.
Oh, yeah, no, I know.
So that overflows the system, so where does that water go?
Exactly where it goes. So the system is basically a back
Oh my
tank. Well, so once the R tanks are full,
Oh, it would
it
go
just
back
backs
to-
up,
it
and
would
then
just-
it would never cross the road. It would stay where it does now in the existing stormwater system. So we're tying into.
It doesn't show that anyplace.
See the little dots that come down
Yeah, they should be in there.
here?
Yeah, it's these dashes right here.
Oh.
So it would just continue as it does now. The dashed gray line.
So it wouldn't go in, overflow out somewhere else. It
Correct.
just wouldn't go in.
Correct.
And I thought, they said too, didn't we have the ability, even if, that you could turn, there were some valves here and here where it goes into this, that you
Yeah.
could turn those off, and it would be no different than what we do
Yes.
today.
Yep, yeah, we always put, usually it's a knife gate valve, because those are really easy to operate and they don't seize up, but you put a knife gate valve, probably before it crosses the road, so that you could isolate the entire system, let it fully drain out if you need to do maintenance, or if you wanted to clean the swirl separator. So yeah, so there'd be the ability just to well, if you close that valve, everything would function exactly the way that it is now. It has
Oh, that way and that way, okay.
definitions.
So it actually, okay. So if you were having an incident, you could turn that off there at the before it got off Carnarvon Street, or,
No,
Just-
I would say after it crossed, it looked like it was gonna be something right down here.
so you would be crossing the road?
Yep, it looks like it would be right here and probably right there, but.
I mean, you could also turn it off at the new catch basin, which will be the swirl separator, so the water doesn't go into that, and then that pipe would just be full, and then water would keep going the way it
Okay.
normally goes.
This is something new for us, so let's say we went and put this in. What's the maintenance or, I use my limited understanding of septic system that you have to go and then, because a bunch of water's going in, it's going down. Everything doesn't work, for some reason or there's something didn't work perfect. What's the life cycle and all
So
that good stuff?
the state is having us sign 10-year minimum agreements with the town. So the Clean Water Service Provider, which is the Conservation District and the Regional Planning Commission, would be the responsible party in terms of maintenance. So we would sign a contract with the town. We would work it out with the town to see what maintenance you wanted to do. And I believe we could pay you to do that maintenance also. And then every 10 years or whatever contract length we came up with, probably in consultation with the consulting firm, we would talk about, do we want to re-up this? We would, so we would re-up it, and then the lifespan of the plastic units is about 50 years. So we would re-up until we get to 50 years, and then we would see if we want to, if it's working fine, we just keep going. If it's not, we try to replace some things. I mean, it's hard to predict what's gonna happen 50 years from now, just because the state sort of changes their programs every so many years, but, I think we have some pretty good assurances that at this point we'll have funds for maintenance for the, medium term with the state.
For regular maintenance, the only thing that has to happen is that the swirl separator needs to be cleaned out. And the target interval is once a year. So that's the same thing as you would vac pump out a catch basin. There's really no difference other than I think, depending on, there might be two different bins you have to suck out, but it's the same thing, the same equipment as cleaning out a catch basin. It would also benefit because the drainage system on Carnarvon is in rough shape right now. And I'm not promising this, but usually you can get some money tied into these to improve drainage system that feeds into the system, because that is required for it to function the way that it's designed. So it could be a good chance to also get all those catch basins sucked out and cleaned up and repaired. So, but that is the minimum required maintenance is keeping up with the swirl separator cleaning. And then there are cleanouts all through the system. You can see it in the picture. They have a concrete square on their cleanouts. You don't have to do that. It can be as simple as just a little yard drain cover, like a little green plastic dome. I think it's an 8-inch riser pipe, and that can be the only thing that you see, and it's flush to the grass. You can mow over it. And so those, you can run like a jet nozzle down those and clean it out if you need to, but so long as the pre-treatment is maintained, you should never need to do that. But that is there, that's what those are, they're inspection ports and for maintenance. And then someone did mention that you might do a hockey rink in that zone sometimes. Is that a, okay.
We have in the past.
Well, I know, yeah,
So
same.
sad.
If for some reason it's starting in winter again, then you can actually drain water into those inspection ports. So there's a chamber system in South Burlington that they built their hockey rink on top of, and they just swap out a grate with a cap for the winter, and then when it's done, they pop the cap and everything breaks.
And the water goes down for
So-
your skating rink that
Yeah.
we need.
So that would be a fine thing to do. So long as it's clean, it can go in there.
Now, is there any inspection, maintenance kind of over the years of the actual grates and the plastic itself, or is there a way to do that?
So I mean, the concern is that if the system isn't draining fast enough, then it doesn't have the capacity to take on the next storm. And so, based on our test pits and pretty simple calculations, this system full to the top should completely drain to the ground roughly 14 hours after it stops getting flow into it. The state minimum is 48 hours. So basically, so long as the system is draining within 48 hours of when the rain stops, then it's still functioning fine. And then if it starts to take longer than that, then that would suggest that it needs to be cleaned out, and that could be like a jet cleaning or something. But for the most part, you want to do your due diligence and get the water clean before it goes in, because it's not very easy to clean these systems out. So, and that's true for almost any stormwater system. And so, like, you wanna make sure that you're very well designed to clean the water before it comes in, and that you're keeping up on maintenance on that unit. But for this design, that would just be a single manhole structure.
And he's meaning, so the solids would hopefully drop out in
Yep.
in the swirl separator, and then your nutrients, which are also going to the streams and the lakes and causing the algae blooms and different problems, those would be what would be absorbed into the soil.
And refresh my memory, the cost to the town for this is
No, there's no cost to the town.
just.
And
that's
the
what-
maintenance, again, we would see, but we might even be able to pay for the time. Because the other thing you could say is we don't want to do the maintenance, so hire it out, if there's no payment for it. But if we can hire it out, I don't see why we can't pay the town. I've paid towns before to do work.
So, and that's a good reason for this current pool of money. Because, like, that might not exist if the state does change permitting requirements in the future, trying to maintain water quality goals. And, but I mean, but the town is being asked to allow the space to, be used to have significant disruption during construction, and then to have a slight change in the future use potential because of load rating, basically,
So what's your ask?
So
Us tonight.
we just wanted to make sure we didn't spend the funds to go to final design, like all the way through because that gets expensive, so we have a grant right now to do the final design, but we just wanted to check in with you before we got too far down the road. We're farther down. I have somebody here who's better versed in the technology than I am. So the idea was to just get either a vote or a verbal approval that we think there's enough chance that we might be interested in doing this, that we think you should go to final design. And then if we still have reservations, we either have enough information to get more accurate, the most accurate possible answers.
What's the process for the townspeople, for input? Is there public hearings in the whole 9 yards?
So I don't no, but if you want to do something like that and could help warn it in different pieces, then we could be available.
I think
to
that's the
attend.
best approach, because we just,
We need to make
Yeah.
sure we touch the base.
right,
You can
yeah.
probably see the bruises still.
Yeah, well, I wonder about that. And we were thinking, oh geez, it's really not great to come right after another project in the same exact space. We understand.
The other thing that you will have to be aware of, and Glenn alluded to, is the park is sacred. And if it doesn't return to its natural glory, we'll all be hung, and rightly so. And that's important. So there would be, that manhole would be in the park proper, off to the side of the east side of that path.
Yep, and that location is very flexible. We're just showing that, like, something needs to be over there, and that could be, and it would still just be a standard, probably a 30-inch manhole. It might actually be an 8-foot structure underground, but you would just see the 30-inch manhole. That could also be a standard 4-foot manhole just to make the corner, and then the swirl separator could go right in, nestled up against the R tanks. It doesn't really, there will need to be 2 structures. It doesn't matter kind of, at least to me, it doesn't matter which one is where, but you need to make the corner and then get into the system. But, those would just be a standard cast iron manhole cover. And then the inspection boards. And I didn't mention this before, so Ferguson, the company, like, for bigger projects like this and high visibility projects, like, they will have, they offer, just wrapped into the cost of buying the equipment from them, they have on-site people there that have done, countless of these projects. I have worked with these a couple times on one project roughly this scale, but we weren't quite using them the same way, and then a couple other smaller projects in Vermont. But this would definitely be the biggest, like, underground infiltration system that I've worked on. But for Ferguson, like, this is like a normal project. Like, they do ones
Do they
considerably bigger
stamp
than
their
this.
plans? So could we pay for that piece? to have them
I
stamp it?
believe that they will stamp plans. Otherwise, my colleague Jordan, who is a PE, he will also be. I mean, someone will stamp.
It would be
Somebody
good to have
does.
stamped plans,
Yes, these will be
because then you
stamped
have,
plans.
a way to go.
We also, my company shares a building with Krebs and Lansing, and they're a much bigger, they focus on really boring PE projects, and so, like, this is like they do a lot of parking lots and buildings and things like that, whereas we do more like river restoration and wetland jobs, and so our engineer is not as well versed in like straight civil engineering projects, but we work with other companies too when we need someone else involved to weigh in on it and stand for our plans.
What's your pleasure, folks?
I think we need the public input.
It
Cause
will be very foreign, it'll be very alien to everybody. Go ahead.
So I will start with an anecdote. I was overseas, I was on a military base, and that base was there for about a decade. People came and went and came and went and came and went, so I was there with the last group that was on that base. Gentleman in the bucket loader didn't know why that concrete block was over there, so he moved the concrete block so he could get at the stuff on the other side, and he went through the septic system, because it can't hold that much weight, right? But he didn't know it was there because it was 10 years later. Is there any way we could make this support a bucket loader? Because I'm going to be honest, in 10 years when I'm gone and we're all gone, somebody's going to have a good idea to park a fire truck on it.
Yep.
And then the next Joe and the next select board's going to be like, ah, crap, didn't know that was there.
So yes, they do make, they have a whole range of units, and so the ones that would be the starting point for this one, I believe, are the second out of 5 levels of like load rating. So they do make ones that can support, you know, a tank with, don't quote me, but you know, like can support way more weight with less cover.
Sure.
But they cost more, and so we can easily have them. It's great if you work with Ferguson. I can just send an email, and then 2 days later they've updated the plans and they send me a spec. You know, that's their job is to help. So I can easily ask, like, what would it take to get to hold a fire truck full of water?
Sure, I'm just thinking about 10 years, the next.
You're saying 50-year lifespan, that's...
25 years we've forgotten that it's there, and all of a sudden it's backing up because the water's going into the river now because we forgot to clean it out 15 years later.
Right.
And then we end up with a hole in the ground because the fire truck's there. And we don't want to do that to the next town manager.
That'll be like 3 town managers.
Yeah, 3 town, yeah, exactly, that's 3 town managers.
I got a quick question also. I understand how it works pretty much. Water comes down Carnarvon and goes across. When this fills up, it's not gonna take any more water, so it's gonna go like it's normally going. But as this water seeps down, that's gonna seep into the aquifer underneath there. We got banks over here going down to the river, lowland. What's the potential for that to head and fissure them out and have some landslides that we don't wanna have?
So, I mean, that's above my pay grade. But you have a deep depth to your water table here. So, you know, water will keep going down. It will be very slow. There already is plenty of water soaking into the ground and going into that water table and spreading out in that direction. This would be taking some of the water that is not currently going into the groundwater and sending it into the groundwater. So that is certainly something that I can ask. You know, we work with the geohydrologist.
But it's working now.
Yep.
Banks are somewhat stable.
Yep.
Every now and then there's a little slide here and there.
Yep.
But if you're gonna add more to it,
Not adding more, we're just concentrating. I think that's probably the.
Well, no, it is adding more because all of this water currently is straight piped
Already
to the river.
going down.
Right.
It's straight piped to the river. So
Washington,
this would be adding more water.
Okay,
That
you're
would
right.
flowing
Yeah.
towards the school
Yep,
and
yep,
towards
yep,
that
yep.
bank. And we work closely. There's really only 1 or 2 geohydrologists in the state, and I can ask that question and just see if he has any thoughts on that.
The other thing, maybe we could get some, how long has this project in Massachusetts been in?
That one I don't know, but they've been putting these in for 25 years.
So it'd be nice to know how other ones have fared.
Yeah, and if you were interested, I could easily organize like a Zoom call with Rob Woodman is their like senior engineer, and a big part of his job is talking to groups like you and you know answering questions. So that would be easy to set up. I texted him from dinner tonight with a question that he got back right back to me. So
It's, like I said, we ran into a pretty difficult situation with just putting the parking lot in. So we want to make sure people have that opportunity to, so that for us, I think the next thing is to get the public involved. but which may put you guys back a little bit, but we would need your input, Hillary, your input, and maybe somebody from the company, for a public hearing. Sean, you had your hand up at one point, I'm sorry. I forgot.
Somebody answered it, thank you.
And we can also get the specs for the swirl separator too. That's a pretty easy thing to find out. Basically, all they want to know is what is your target flow rate. And so we tell them 4 cubic feet per second, and we tell them what our elevations are, and then they just spec it. But I can get details for that too, and we can build all those up into the plan set.
I think we want all those questions answered. There'll be other ones we don't think of course.
What would it look like to give the information? Like, how are you envisioning that? Would it be just like information here, or would it be a meeting with the public, or
It would be a meeting with the public,
Okay.
and maybe just whatever we can get for excuse me for being old, audio visual,
Sure.
Where would you hold that?
probably at the grade school. It's kind of what we do. We have an imposium over there, but, oh,
I have 3 questions. This is only for the northern end of town, correct?
Yes.
Okay. 2, does it matter the time of year that you guys do this? So in other words, can you do it first thing in the spring before we start, or last thing in the fall?
Yep.
So that's not gonna make,
If you do it too late in the year, you're not going to get grass until the following spring. So that you'd have a bunch of straw out there. Like that's the one concern, is that if you do it in November, it's going to be ugly for the winter.
and my last question, will this create boggy, like after a rainstorm, will there be, because that's where they have the farmer's market.
Yep.
So having done that sort of stuff, when you try to set up a booth in a boggy area, it's not fun.
The water will always be at least, probably more like 3 feet below the surface. So like the top of the milk crates is going to be like 3 feet down. And so the water will always be way down there. And because it's on pure sand, sand doesn't wick water up like silt does. So I can confidently say that no, you know, like once everything is settled and the grass is grown in, the only indication is there will be the little clean out ports.
Okay.
what is your time frame for us putting the addition of a public hearing?
So I would love to finish the design, and then we'd have like better information for the public hearing. And then once, we have a deadline for the design because the funding source for that project runs out in the end of October. So we're actually hoping to just get this done fairly quickly now, kind of efficiently. But after that happens, we won't have applied for any funding for implementation. So I think that would be a great place to actually stop, if that makes sense to everybody. We already have the funds to do the design. It's on track to be done in the end of October. We just would be able to answer questions better, I think, and then we don't have to go forward to implementation or write the next grant if people don't want to do it.
And if we give you approval to go through the design so that we can have the meeting and show some really better information, we haven't committed to doing it, we haven't committed money, we're just saying, finish the design so that we can better explain, this is what it is.
Yep.
That makes a lot of sense. You gotta have a project before you can have a hearing, right?
And
I mean,
You're the,
No, that's,
I could,
sorry to keep jumping in here. As part of the design, can your designer do some, what do you call it, those images that would depict what the park would look like with the thing in it?
Oh, like actually, instead of the building in the background, have the park in the background.
it would show, you know how you, well, it looks
Like
at the
that,
nice
the
green,
park.
how you say,
Yeah.
when you're working on it, it looks like this. When it's completed and the grass grew back, it looks like this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
think
got some
that would
feed,
help
yeah.
alleviate some.
I got some feedback from some people, and they're like, well, I don't know what it's gonna look like.
Yeah.
So if we could just show what it looks
Right,
like,
right.
that might go a long way and be like, that really, this is what it is.
And I mean, if the public hearing, you know, if someone from Ferguson wanted to come, or if I just talked to them, they could probably send us with a clean out. And we could be like, there's gonna be 6 of these things, and they're gonna stick up you're gonna be flush with the grass, and like, that's gonna be it. Like, I'm sure I can at least like bring a little,
Cause, yeah, it looks like you could take a mower right over the
Yep.
top.
Oh,
of
yeah,
the
that's
grass.
the
It keeps
design.
the grass mowed, it's not a major maintenance thing, yeah, so. So
Okay,
you're
I ask
looking for-
again.
Are you looking for a motion?
I would think that would be appropriate.
I will make a motion that we give approval to the, make sure I'm-
Final design?
The Poultney Mettowee,
Natural Resources Conservation District.
those people to finish to go ahead with the final design, so that we can hold an information meeting with the people to show them what we like to do.
I'll second that.
I have one more question. Just because I'm still, like I said, still in shock. If we say no after final design, are we on the hook for any money at that
No
point?
money, no retribution,
Free.
no nothing.
Hard to take free for
one
an
candy,
answer.
that's your
Yeah.
fee so far.
Yeah, hard to take.
You
free
can
for
have
an
two.
There you go.
Roseanne took two. Roseanne took two. All
No,
right.
I mean, I live locally, I work locally, like, I would like for everyone to love their projects, and if they are unsure, then, you know, let's be sure, so,
Well, it's the park.
yeah, I get that.
Everybody understand what we're voting on? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
The only
Unanimous.
issue- The only issue I have is the two concerns I mentioned.
I'll follow up on those.
Okay.
And parking is definitely a concern.
And then, is there, do you already have a set meeting, like, do you have like a winter meeting or something that would be an appropriate time to do this, or this would be?
No,
completely
we'd have to
special
set it up,
schedule? Okay.
the convenience of everybody and a 30-day probably notice period or whatever it is.
So we'll connect with you guys then when the plans are finished,
Yeah.
and we feel like we have the materials ready, and
Maybe come back and do another one of these and we'll set up a timeframe for, and sometime in the
Tentatively,
winter.
yeah, tentatively, we're gonna be talking budget, pretty busy till the end of the year. There's a little gap, and you probably want before the March town meeting,
Yes.
it would be nice to have that information meeting.
January kind of.
Like
Yeah, so January would be a good time.
Mid-January.
Mid-January, we're done with the budget usually mid-January, right? You know, that's when we take time off, so. We might as well have a meeting.
For you, all might get up.
Good.
Thank you very
Well, thank you very much for coming in and answering
Thank
the
you for
questions.
being, I guess, open-minded and just listening about this, because it does look like a big project, and I can understand where people would have reservations. I just appreciate everybody's time.
Well, there was a former selectman here that probably beat you up pretty hard the last time you were here, so
Yes.
I'm sure he will be here.
We
for-
tried to have answers to all those questions, so
Yes.
hopefully.
Be prepared.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks. Okay.
Meeting about a potential new Class 4 road at 7:15. We're a little off.
Yes, that gentleman won't be making it tonight.
So
Okay.
we'll take-
Right on the-
Oh, I'm sorry, we already talked about that, sorry. Amendments to the agenda.
None for me tonight.
Last call. Approval of the minutes for August 20th first.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of August 20th as written.
I'll second that.
Is there any additions, deletions, corrections? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And the special meeting for the August 23rd.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting, the special meeting for August 23rd as written.
Second.
I'll
Rich, as
second
long
that.
as long as you were there.
I'll second it.
All those in,
Oh, that'd be-
oops, sorry.
Only one, on the special meeting, February, it says 9:30 PM, it should be AM,
Right.
that's all.
Yeah, that would have been a bad time to meet,
It says AM on mine.
I'll be-
Does it?
really.
It says PM on mine too.
It said PM on
Okay, so everybody good with the changes?
it. Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? 5 minutes for public comment. Sean, you were.
I had a question. I haven't been to all the select board meetings or follow them on PEG TV as much as maybe I should have. But from the meetings I've been to and social media, it's clear that the town is involved in a feud with the Billowitz family that has led to lawsuits. And a couple months ago, the town manager had mentioned that they had cost the town taxpayers a lot of money. And I just wanted to have an open mind and ask the question, were you referring to did the court find in favor, are they correct? Do they have an argument? Are they incorrect in what they're upset about? As the court found in favor of them and that we paid out in judgments against the town, or is the money you were referring to the cost of fighting frivolous lawsuits and the loss of tax revenue from not being able to sell properties that the court has determined the town owns? I'm just looking at, are they right, or has the court found against the town any of this?
No, the town hasn't been found in fault. The court has, up to the Supreme Court, has found that they don't have standing anymore and that they've lost their homes. And I'm not sure how, you can look it up, but I'm not exactly sure what the ruling said exactly. I don't know if anybody else, you may have a better, but the bottom line is we haven't paid any judgments to the Billowitzes. No.
So the cost of the town has been in fighting the lawsuits and in lost revenue for not being able to collect tax dollars on properties that could have been sold, if not delayed from these petitions that get circulated to cause votes and that type of thing. And those are additional costs too, the additional voting. And if we can fit it into another vote that's coming up, we do. So it's not extra, but it's time that the people who count the votes have to do. And the town clerk has to set it up and make it all legal and everything. And any idea how much this has cost the town taxpayers? This whole mess?
It's been going on since 2014.
Right.
So it's very difficult to tell exactly because some of it is paid by our insurance company, but not all of it. And there's a bunch of legal that we're out for. Yes, there's a lot of cost, but I couldn't tell you. I have no idea. You don't have it.
It's been going on so long, Sean, I don't know how anybody would be able to calculate the total cost on this for man hours and, labor hours and fees.
And another
Unpaid taxes.
And unpaid taxes.
Unpaid taxes, another intangible is have we, because of the litigation, have we had to pay more to our insurance company because we're in a high risk, more high risk than most towns are. So I don't know if we'll ever be able to calculate it.
It just, from some of the social media, so I just was wondering if the town was found to be wrong by the courts, but apparently
No,
not.
that's a safe thing to say. And it's, there's all kinds of accusations of us. And so far the courts have not found us wrong. It's just up the, and the other thing that should be said is they are pro se. So when they go to court, a lot of times they are pro se, so they get extra leeway in the court system because they're their own lawyers, and still haven't been able to convince any court that we were wrong and they were right. So it's an ongoing thing. I don't know where I believe the Supreme Court said don't come back. Is that correct? Supreme Court said, don't come back unless you have a lawyer that tells you you have a case. And my guess is that it would have to be a very strong case, and so far they haven't found one that has been able to tell them that. So we're kind of, rehashing things over and over again, and that costs time and money and energy. So.
Well, on a positive note, unrelated, the ambulance found a second person for the student housing program.
Oh, good.
So, it's cost neutral to the squad.
Your 5 minutes is up.
No, it's a positive thing.
There you go, you ended on a positive note, thank you.
Good.
Carl?
Just to follow up on the first part of Sean's presentation, is the town entertained any consideration of doing a common lawsuit to recover some of the costs of that the bill of wits have incurred on the town?
We haven't, mostly because there isn't much to get. And
I understand there's not a source of, but it might quiet them down a little bit if there's the.
I don't know.
I'm only asking the question.
Yeah,
Out there,
we haven't.
consideration.
The answer is we haven't considered it.
That may be a good question for our attorneys.
Yeah, but then it goes, go ahead.
So, I have talked to the attorneys about it, no, it's not off the table.
Okay.
The reason.
So I have talked to our attorneys and no, a countersuit is not off the table.
Not off the table, so it's possible.
Still on the
It's always
It
possible.
hasn't come before the board yet.
No, it has not.
Okay, I'm here for public comment.
Yeah.
And my public comment is that there was a one-way street sign at the end of Pelkey Avenue and Washington Street that was knocked over going down at the last snowstorm, which was the end of March, 1st of April. And it was laying on the ground for a few days and then disappeared. And I came in and talked with Joe about it, and he said, well, I threw it in the back of my pickup truck and drove off with it. And I've been in contact with Joe a couple of times a month ever since then. So we've got April, May, June, July, August. So we have 5 months of at least 10 interactions with Joe in getting it back, and the responses have ranged from, it won't happen today, but perhaps on Monday. And the street sign is still missing. It's still not there, and it's causing a concern on Pelkey Avenue because more people are driving the wrong way down Pelkey Avenue. I sit in my living room and I can see them going the wrong way. And part of that is not just and the one-way street sign is almost brand new. It was put there when the Washington Street was repaved a few years ago. The signs on the other end of the street say "Do not enter," are a bit older and maybe not legible, so perhaps those could be replaced. And in addition to that, the no parking this side of the street, which is on the same side of the street as the slate sidewalk, are starting to fade, and there might be one in the middle that's missing. There's one on each end of the street, but those are largely ignored by both my neighbors on both sides. They show up there. And the reason there was a one-way street, no parking this side, was to preserve the slate sidewalk. And I didn't bother to run the select board at the time. This was in the late 80s when this was installed, and it's been in great shape ever since, except for occasionally heavy trucks driving on it. There's a few slates that have been cracked, but overall it's stayed in great shape. So if we can just kind of keep up with the enforcement and with kind of the diligence of keeping traffic off the sidewalks and on the other side of the street. It's a narrow street, so it's one way. It's very appropriate. And in fact, I think when they first made it a one-way street, they said this will last about 1 year. But everyone on the street has really endorsed it, embraced it. And I think that the community understands that the historical value of the slate sidewalk with a bit of a curve. And I know in the last several meetings, not just this year, but in past years, there's been discussion about plowing the sidewalk with snow. And I've been there since 1985, and that sidewalk has never been plowed.
Right.
And I think the slate sidewalks in general are not suitable for plowing. A number of years ago, there's one on First Street that ripped up 3 or 4 slates, and last year, the year before, winter, On West Street, that same situation. So I'd request the board to kind of give me a date certain when the one-way street sign will come back and kind of make it more of an awareness. And perhaps even the do not enter sign on the other end of the street on Carnarvon Street. So that's my public comment.
He's very much correct. I've talked to Carl several times, once down on his own street. In fact, today I emailed the sign shop and they said, yeah, we got our signs and posts sitting here, why didn't you come get them? I said, well, you're supposed to mail them to me. So, I haven't forgot about you. I've been following up. There's a couple signs around town that we've been trying to get at.
Okay, do you have a date that you can give me?
I don't. I told them today to just mail them, so they're gonna ship the stuff to me.
I mean, Joe, this has been 5 months. I understand what you're saying. There's been, like, in the beginning, it's a promise, so I'll get it to you, not today, but soon, and that was
5 months ago.
4 or 5 months ago.
Yep.
And ever since then, it's been, yep, and you get out your phone, and I don't know who you're talking to, but it's like, I get the feeling when I leave your office that, okay, by the time I walk home, there'll be a truck at the end of Pelkey Avenue with putting the sign in the ground.
No,
So
but
I'm just wondering what you can give me. I know you don't, if you can give me a date of when I can come back either to you or to the board and.
Sure, I can't give you a hard date. So when I get my phone, that's what I'm asking my staff, did that stuff come in yet?
But the stuff was already there. It was in the back of your truck.
How about by the end of this month?
If I make that promise and it doesn't show up, then
Then
I haven't.
no, here's what
I
you
haven't
do, you
given
tell
her a
us,
date.
you tell us that and you call Carl and say, here's what's happening. So it doesn't seem like it's impossible.
I can tell you by the end of the month, but I can't, I mean, I can use the end of the month, but I can't use the end of the month, Bob.
Joe, what are
Yes,
you
yeah.
worriering? You took the sign and you put it in the back of your truck. The sign
Right
was-
now, I'm just trying to-
It was 2 years old.
Right now, I'm just trying to get posts, Carl. I'm telling you, it is
The post was
impossible.
there.
No, the post was snapped.
No, it wasn't. I was there, I saw it, I walk by it every day. My son lives at that house.
Okay.
So, okay, we'll leave it at that. But if you can.
It sounds like we're going to
Why don't we,
address the sign issue as quickly as we possibly can, is what I hear.
Posts
I know that's not a date, but
or
that's,
signs.
So,
No, it-
follow up, so DPW head will get it, that it came up tomorrow, so I'll put it on Nate's radar as well as everybody else's.
So the sooner the better, of course. And I appreciate
Understood.
your time and consideration for this.
Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, all right.
thank you.
We will hopefully not have to talk to you again about this.
Okay.
But you're welcome here for anything else.
Yeah,
Yes.
all right, love to see you.
Thank you much.
Thanks, Carl.
Yep.
Roseanne?
I want to, excuse me, I want to thank the board for their support and Joe's working to get the railroad to pave. And it's nice, it's not as good as it was, but it's very nice on Cedar Street, and I'm assuming it's going to be the same for Pleasant Street, but I just want to say I really appreciate you guys pushing on that.
No, I'll add one thing to that, they have done a great job, it looks nice. Yeah.
I meant to go over today and I didn't,
And I wanted to thank you for the cones too, because that did make a huge difference.
Are my cones still out there?
No, they were taken away 2 days before they started paving. And I thought that was because you guys needed them for painting the roads.
I'll find them.
But we don't need them anymore. I mean, so, but
What's that?
they had put cones up so people remembered, or anybody who didn't know that, you gotta, this is dangerous. There were at least 3 cars that I am aware of that lost their undersides to that, to Cedar Street alone. So,
not that it makes any difference to the people that lost things, but they're doing that in several different towns in the county, and everybody has the same complaint. They just They did a
They did a
terrible job of the in-between.
coordinating it.
The interim part of it, and then next time maybe we will be able to catch them quicker, but anyways, thank you for that. Anything else?
Not at the moment.
Still early.
Yeah, it's early. Department head report. You're the department head, sir.
This report is from the 1924 to September 1st, 24. We had 4 arrests. One was an incapacitated person, a wanted person for disorderly conduct, and a simple assault. We wrote 92 traffic tickets, or 91, correction, 28 written warnings. We had no car crashes in the last 2 weeks and no parking tickets. We did 18 sets of civilian fingerprints in the last 2 weeks. I'd like to acknowledge that Bonnie Rosati's in her 22nd year with the town, and Chris DeVito, which is a part-time officer, is actually on military leave right now, is in his 4th year. I gave you a brief list of the highlights of what we did in the last 2 weeks. So we had 192 calls for service, and we're at 2573 for the month. That's what I have.
Thank you. Any questions for the chief? No. It's you.
Okay, just a little bit from my office and the DPW's side of things. Our crack ceiling wrapped up last week, so those guys did a good job. They just hit kind of the big stuff around town. The trees in the cemetery that we were concerned about, those are down and the stumps are ground. I didn't go down today, but the cemetery boys are supposed to cover it with topsoil and then seed it, so they're gonna finish that up. The soccer program is up and running. We added three additional games this year. We signed up with Rutland Soccer, so we get more games for our kids. Thursday, as part of the town's goal to improve our income, our revenue, we sold another property. This time it was to the Kendalls out on Munger Road. So we closed that on Thursday. And Roseanne mentioned Cedar Street, that's done, and Pleasant Street will be done tomorrow afternoon. Also mentioned earlier today about the businesses coming in for a chat. We did get letters out to our businesses, letters and emails for downtown to talk about the parking ordinance. That discussion is scheduled for the 17th. We handed out free bike helmets. I think that was last week. The week before.
I think it was last week, because when I was, right? I think I was in here last week.
Yeah, so we handed out bike helmets. That was a good program. I believe the chief found these bike helmets. Somebody donated them. We finally handed those out. We also had 2 old snow shovels that were just taking up space, and somebody came and took those too. So hopefully they work on, or they live on Pelkey, so that way they can shovel their snow. And the MERC grant's open. I'm meeting with, so the MERC grant, this is the Municipal Energy Resilience Program. I'm meeting with Rutland Regional Planning this week about this. The state says it's a maximum of $500,000 grant. So this is for insulation, what they call the
How big a grant?
maximum 500,000.
500,000?
How much you asking for? 500,000?
500,000, yeah. You only get what you ask for.
Yep.
No match, it's a no match grant. And it's for the building envelope, as well as converting from fossil fuels to an electric heat and air conditioning. That's their priorities, and that's exactly what we want. So that's what we're shooting for. That's what I got. Oh, and next week, so I should have done it this week, but just as a heads up, every year about this time I ask the board for their advice about the budget, what percentage you'd like to see. Next meeting, I'll put that on the agenda for the discussion. Something to think about over dinner.
Bob, we've got a question.
Oh,
Rumor has it.
don't believe rumors.
No, well, I was at the last meeting, and so there have been some rumors going around that the people who are working at the businesses, there is talk that maybe we would be required to purchase permits, parking permits. Now, I didn't see anything or hear anything about that at the last meeting. I didn't know if maybe something came up in the meantime about that.
Not
The
for
discussion
employees.
is, we're trying to, and I kind of brought this up, is organizing the tenants more. So we talked about potentially the tenants having a parking permit.
But we're still just
So
just the tenants. It's not,
yeah, no.
doesn't have anything to do
No,
with
and
the
No,
businesses.
and it had more to do with giving them a direction as to where we would like them to park, more than coming up with whatever. We came up with something
Right.
very, very tentative and very,
Yeah, we're
Okay,
still
I just,
we're still working through it.
early last week, I walked into work and I'm like, I'm not paying for a parking permit. What are you talking about? Well, this is what's been making the rounds, so I'm just confirming what,
Yes,
There was
you
nothing.
you will have a parking permit.
There was nothing mentioned about employees.
and there, no.
Yeah, I didn't
and it
think
was
so.
very, very, preliminary talk about just, it was,
Spitballing pretty much.
spitballing.
Right.
For lack of a better term.
Trying to
That's
figure-
a good term. What can we do? How can we do this? That was one of the suggestions, but it wasn't for employees, it was for.
sometimes I misunderstand things, so I just wanted to
You never know until you ask.
make sure.
Okay, you're good. The MOU is tabled,
That's still legal, yes, sir.
okay? So the carpet in the old business carpet in the PD,
Yeah, so there was discussion about using, the final few thousand, $9,000 of the USDA grant that we received for this building, for town hall, to go towards, heating and air conditioning on the second floor. But with the MERP money coming out now, and then with the board approving some ARPA funds to go to the building, I was hoping we could close the grant out and use that final $9,000 for carpet in the police department. The chief did get some quotes, and I did get this approved by USDA. It would make, at least in my mind, it makes more sense to use USDA money for carpet instead of heating and cooling, because MERP money can only be used for heating and cooling, right? We'd be like, it seems like we'd be throwing money or working at cross
And
purposes.
are we guaranteed to get any of the MERT grant or no? What's the chances of us getting that?
We will get something, I don't like to say guarantee. It's competitive, but we're high rated because of our fuel use.
it's kinda late, go ahead.
So I guess my argument for replacing the carpet is it was put in 2002 when we moved from here up there. It's held up well, but it's getting more dangerous at the junctions are starting to fray. It's this kind of carpet. I would like to go to that kind of carpet, so if one got bad, you could peel the one up, replace it. And it's held up for 22 years, so it's done well, but it's really dangerous. It's getting dangerous, and I worry about trip and fall hazards, and I don't want to duct tape it. And I guess my argument is, we put a lot of money in this end of the building. Why wouldn't we continue to finish the end we're using versus the end we're not using yet? That's just would be my argument.
Only if you put shag rug in.
Orange.
Yeah, orange. Yeah.
What were your estimates like that,
It was 8,000.
it was 8,000?
And that was, the same company did this, but they said it was a lesser cost carpet, but just as durable. It was a different company.
So would you be looking, see, I'm just looking, not to exceed 9,000 or 8, see, I'm just,
I would say it's 8 and change.
it's 8 and change, so not to exceed
It
9,000.
was not 9, it was 8. We have it somewhere.
I couldn't find it.
If we can do it, and you're saying we can do it, it's without getting ourselves in trouble, I'll make a motion to, not to exceed $9,000 to replace the carpet in the police department.
I'll second that.
I have a question, it's a little late to think of this, but what about pergola floors?
My only concern is like when you go, are you talking about the snap together?
Yeah.
My only concern that I have is like, if you go into some places, I'm gonna say, I've been in convenience stores or I've been in discount stores where they've used that, they get areas of heavy traffic and it starts to wear through, and then how do you replace the area that's bad?
Pop it out and put more in.
Don't you, I mean, I put it in and my thought would
It's
be,
pretty hard to do though.
you've gotta build the whole floor to do those.
Yeah.
If
You
you
gotta
start over
pull-
there, your problem's
You
here.
gotta pull the
take it.
floor and do it.
So my thought was if for some reason you want to do laminate, we would go back to the actual tile. And then tile, so you could replace one tile at a time.
Okay.
That's my only concern with it. It's heavy traffic. Certain areas, it'll get wear marks at some point.
All right, I can live with that, I mean, that's
So you
good stuff out
prefer
there.
this carpet then?
I think it's easier to maintain if
Okay.
there's less slip hazard.
That's for sure.
And again, we've got 22 years out of the last rug that went in, so I would think that we would get, that rug will last longer because you can replace individual pieces versus the whole rug.
Okay.
And it's free if you guys wanted to walk through, I can show you if you need to, the bad spots.
Been there and seen the, yeah, you need a carpet.
Do you want to include in that motion that it'll be paid with the USB game grant?
Just,
No?
do you want it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Then we could close up.
Okay, okay, then
Close
it'll
out the
be,
grant.
I will include that, yes, to be paid with the USDA grant.
Everybody understand what we're doing? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Local hazard mitigation contract.
So it's that time of year again to revisit the local hazard mitigation plan. We did this just like a year or so after I arrived. This particular plan is something that FEMA likes to see. If this is one of the plans that if we have like local hazard mitigation and we have, no, I'm gonna draw a blank, but if we have 3 or 4 of these plans in place, FEMA gives us more of a percentage, when more of a percentage of reimbursement if bad things happen around here. So instead of just getting 5%, we get 12.5% right now. And that's part of having this type of plan in place. FEMA is paying for this. It was, let me see. Our percentage on this would be a 21.8%. FEMA's paying the rest. I am recommending Rutland Regional Planning, even though they're a little bit more expensive. They did this last time. They did this plan last time for us, helped us through it. And I looked at the Syria Health. I think
Where are they out of?
they're nationwide, but their bid really focused on health concerns. Like if the pandemic came back through, they would be able to develop a plan for that. Or they work with like the state of Minnesota, or they've worked with large hospitals. They really didn't talk about something. They didn't really talk to things we would deal with, like flooding out back behind the barn or bridges collapsing. They really didn't talk municipal infrastructure at all. So that would be, if the board is so inclined, I would suggest Rutland Regional Planning's contract, and I would need a $2,487 in match from the grant match fund to get this done.
What's that number again?
Two different
motions.
Two different motions.
What was that,
Yes.
what was that amount?
The grant match is $2,487.
From grant match. Okay, what the, first motion? I'll make a motion that we accept the Rutland Regional Planning Commission bid of $11,366.81 to do our local
Say it
hazard.
again, 11,000.
Not to exceed.
Not to exceed $11,366.81 to do the local hazard mitigation plan update.
Second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Everybody understand what we are doing?
Mhm.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
I'll make a motion that for that local hazard mitigation plan grant match, we use out of the grant match money, $487.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you.
And in case anybody was wondering how much is in grant match fund, there's currently $103,666.97.
Less 2,000, less 2,100.
Right.
But, yeah, less that money we
That's
just
what we
spent.
just spent. Yep,
Okay,
good.
That number right there.
good. Sewer, yeah.
I just had a quick question. How often do we have to do these mitigation plans?
This one's every 5?
5 years.
Every 5 years?
Okay, I thought you had said we did it last year. And
No,
I
no,
was
no.
like,
No, you said the last time.
sorry.
That's all right. Sewer permit review and approval.
So the Kendalls out on the far end of Airport Road have hooked up to our sewer system, and they need approval. They're gonna use 210 gallons of sewer a day.
So it's just a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
I didn't get any of it.
Rich made the motion to approve it, and Mike seconded the motion.
And what did they approve?
The Kendall
Sewer.
sewer hookup.
Final water and sewer allocation permit.
Sewer permit review, is that what that is?
Yes. Nobody else has to sign that?
Nope, just you
Okay.
approved it today, approved it.
Okay. Moving right along. Better Roads Grant, authorized rep. I will assume that's you.
Nope.
No?
Normally this is me, but as a way to kind of expand the skills of our staff, I'm asking that Darcy, the town accountant, be appointed as our representative. So I would need a motion to appoint Darcy Van Noort as, I hope I said that right. Did I say that right?
I think so. I think you're pretty close.
Noort?
I make a motion that we do so.
As the authorized representative.
I'll second that.
Everybody understand what we're doing? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Well, good luck to her.
Yeah, she's got it.
Keep her,
Is he?
busy. All right. Deposit into the Public Works Fund.
Yeah, so the, part of the backhoe grant that we received, what was it, a few weeks ago, we had to destroy the existing backhoe. We had to disable it, which we did. Scrap value on that was $3,000. So I'm asking the board to deposit $3,000 into the Public Works Equipment Fund.
I make a motion that we do so.
I'll second it. I have a question for you. Did they show up in an old Suburban to do that?
I don't know.
Because when they did it down at the town of Poultney, we went down the day they did it to watch them. And they had like a '97 Suburban. They showed up. And I'm like, well, that's kind of ironic. You're handing out money for
Well,
unfuel efficient vehicles that you're driving in
So
by
that's
the most
funny.
inefficient vehicle there.
No, I wanted to be there and see him cut the hole in the block, but I wasn't feeling it that time.
all those in favor of this motion?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Cemetery deed.
Yep, 2 cemetery deeds today.
And the 2 cemetery deeds are we fixing one, or is it 2 new ones?
So we are fixing one for Timothy Hirschenroder. We charged him too much cash, so we changed that and added the correct amount.
Okay, so so we'll start with a motion for Tim, a motion to approve Tim Hirschneider for lot number 57B, section 8, for, where's the dollar amount? $945.
That's the adjusted amount?
That's the correct amount, yeah.
That's the correct amount?
Second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? One more time.
Okay. Motion to approve the sale of one cemetery lot, 50N in section 11 in Cedar Grove for $545 to Susan and Gary Wright.
Susan and Gary.
Wright.
I make a motion, we do so.
Second?
I'll second.
Well, there was a motion already, so
That's
you're,
true.
you're the second. You lose. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you.
And that is Lot 5N, Section
11.
11, thank you.
Lot 5N.
N,
Yeah.
N as in Nancy,
I'm
yes.
sorry.
Okay. Did we vote on that officially? And then we lost track of that.
We did.
Okay, good. Revenue efforts discussion. Got anything to talk about?
You know, just real briefly, I talked to a guy today, and he's gonna help me get some information about folks using the big dump in Rutland, Gleason Road, see where people are coming from, why they're going there, and then see if we can't poach some of that, so, slowly we're getting there.
Until Casella hears about it.
Maybe they wanna buy the dump from us.
Yeah. Well, they do.
Oh, there you go.
They do. They want to run it at an expensive, at a profit for them. That's just the way they work, and there's nothing wrong with them trying to make money. Okay, nothing in the parking lot. Doesn't look, you just talked about the transfer station, so. All right, board roundtable? Sir?
I got a couple things. Very quick, very brief, I think.
That old story.
Well, listen, our DBW crew is still pretty short-handed. Everybody knows that. But they're doing an excellent job, and they've really been hammering at the mowing, and they've been hammering at the ditching up on Bigelow Hill Road and whatnot. I think they're doing an excellent job. And I think if we can keep going the way we're going, our roads are gonna really turn around. But we must make a point to get up on Scotch Hill and do something this fall. At least get some holes and some ditching done, culverts unplugged. So I wish we could, we don't wanna forget that, is what I'm trying to say. And that's very important. And our Ed guy that's been doing such a good job around town, I think what we should do is try to direct him more on catch basins and drainage, so we can get some of this cleaned up, especially on the airport road where there's some catch basins that are still grassed over up in there. Let's get them clean. I think his efforts would be way better spent doing stuff like that, if we could do that. And again, I want to mention the railroad crossing down on Pleasant Street and Cedar Street. Cedar Street come out phenomenally good compared to what I was thinking it would. So hopefully Pleasant Street will be the same. We've done a great job so far.
Who's doing it?
Some private company,
Okay.
I don't know. But keep up the good work and we'll get there.
We got nothing.
The only thing I got is the planning commission is going to hear from the Rutland Regional, from Logan tomorrow about the start for the subdivision rules. And so our first meeting on that, I asked him to give us a timeline, but it's probably too early for that right now. But he's going to give us an overview of what we have. We have the ability to use Poultney and Castleton, I think, we could we can use their subdivision rules as templates and see where we're going. So we start that tomorrow. And, if anybody knows of anybody who wants to be on a planning commission, let them know. We're not in need of a person right now, but we may be soon. So if we get ahead of the game, it would be nice. And one more thing, I don't know if anybody's read this Rural Economic Development Innovation Initiative. And this is the one you gave me, I asked you.
Oh, yeah.
I think you should give everybody a copy of this. This is one of the things, this has been really handy to have when we were doing the town plan. There's a lot of info. I mean, there's a lot of like population info and that kind of thing like that, but there's a lot of ideas in here that are, it's pretty straightforward. It doesn't pull any punches. It tells you when there's problems and what's going on. Some of it's dated, like for instance, the downtown occupancy is up since this. I think this was 21, if I'm not mistaken. But anyways, it's a good. There's a lot of ideas here, and there's some that would be revenue bearing, and there are others that would be just things that we should accentuate in the town. And so it's worth a read.
And it's the Rutland Economic what?
It's the Rural Economic Development Innovation Initiative. And, that's because bureaucrats wrote it. Yeah, February of 2021. It's called Economic Development Strategy Report. And there are some very good ideas in there, and at least potential. All right, I'll shut up. Yeah.
If you don't really, I have a question about the subdivision. And if you don't know the answer, if you could ask it when he comes. So we want to do this subdivision planning type thing so that we can not have to worry about Act 250.
In a certain distance.
But my question is, if we do this, do we actually have to have subdivisions in order to get?
No, but what it would do.
Different idea for subdivision. You're thinking subdivision like population of houses?
Yeah.
No, that's not what that means. Subdivision like breaking apart lots.
So because I know the racetrack was mentioned.
But it also does include 50 units or less would not be subject to Act 250 within this district, and that's a huge economic boost.
But my question is, do you actually have to have do this subdividing in order to get the relief from?
You have to have the rules in place. Yeah.
The rules in place.
That's all.
I just didn't know if we had to go that extra step in order to get the relief from the.
What would happen, my understanding, I'll know more tomorrow, my understanding is that in that ever-expanding circle out to, I think, a mile is if we did everything and jumped through all the hoops, a mile from the center of town, or some designation, I'm not even sure where that would be. Act 250 would not be part of a development program for somebody. So somebody that wanted to come in here and develop a project would save hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right.
And, the town of Fairhaven would benefit by whatever tax base they put in. So it really does help. And it's particularly because there's such a lack of housing in the state. It's particularly directed for those kind of projects and would be very favorable for them. So that's where it's at. But we'll know more tomorrow. You're welcome to come to that meeting if you want. 7 o'clock.
Here?
One other thing I will tell you, and then we'll get up. I heard a statistic on the radio the other day. We graduate approximately 5,300 seniors every year. We lose to retirement, death, and just age 14,500 working people every year. So we're in a hole, in a deep hole.
State of Vermont? Big time.
Anyways, sorry.
Can I chime in? I know this is the board roundtable, but I wanted to mention, and this plays off what Mr. Greeno said. I've had people, just whether I'm sitting in my office or I get emails, or even twice now in Rutland, people who have seen me and they have noticed Fairhaven and they said things are coming along. They notice the sidewalks are clean. They notice the streets are getting paved. They notice the park is beautiful. They notice the parking lot has been redone. There's a lot of positive that people are actually making a point to come down and say, hey, Ed did a good job and the park looks awesome. Things are moving along really well, and I think that's, working as a team, that's.
I've heard that from other people.
It sounds, I guess, terrible, but it's startling to get so much positive feedback.
It's
Like, because that usually doesn't happen to us.
people that don't come to Fairhaven very often. I've had the pleasure running into a little bit this late summer, and those are the kind of comments you get. And you know, the park is the star. So whatever we do to the park, we better do it right.
And I walk around town every day, and I've noticed people are taking pride in their own. I saw someone actually cleaning the side of their own sidewalk going to the house. First time I've seen that.
We're getting there.
We're getting there.
Looking good.
It's taking time, but we're getting there.
Okay. So much for breaking our arm, Pat.
No, it's the same anything, but.
Go right ahead.
Financial reports. I'll make a motion to pay the payroll for $38,725.72.
I second that.
All those in favor?
Can you say that number again?
Sure, $38,725.72.
Thank you. It was right.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Make a motion to pay the warrant for $155,122.95.
Second.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye. We have another one of these warrants left over from fiscal year 2024, so I'll make a motion to pay that warrant. Those are the ones that the bill's coming a little late on. Make a motion to pay the 2024 warrant for $868.69.
I second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And the checkbook status is $788,088. Why am I?
888.
Oh,
There, I've got-
888.
888, there was an 8 missing there. $888.70.
Somebody go buy a lotto ticket.
It's
A lot
not,
of eights there.
it's not a million.
Liar's poker.
So we're still good.
Yeah, we're still there. All right, there is no executive
Did
session.
Did we call the question? Oh, we don't have to.
Oh, we don't have to
No,
call
we
it question.
It says executive session.
No executive
No?
session.
Okay.
So I'd entertain a
I'd
motion
make
to
a motion
adjourn.
to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Sounds good.